Hey, welcome back. This is video number 2. So, immunocompetence has to do with the ability of our immune system cells to respond to an antigen. So, they're not baby T cells and B cells anymore. Now they have become mature. And B lymphocytes, we kind of associate the B lymphocytes with B for bone marrow, saying that this is where they become immunocompetent. The T lymphocytes become immunocompetent or trained, excuse me, matured in the thymus gland through this really complicated, beautiful process that you can look into with a lot of higher level videos. Okay. So basically, once they're mature, now they're ready to do their job. So they're moved to lymph nodes, the spleen, and other lymphoid tissues. So they can kind of hang out there and watch the fluids, the lymph go by in the body and check things out. Okay, so take a look at all of these great resources in this presentation, guys. Okay, another group of cells called the macrophages has a big role to play in this third line of defense. And they're going to secrete chemicals, they're going to do their own really cool function in this third line. So let's jump into this humoral part of the adaptive defense system. So looking here at the diagram, so number 1 here, we see B cells, okay? Here, B cells are kind of floating through the body, inactive. So once they encounter an antigen, here we see the antigen right up here. And once it docks basically onto this B cell, it becomes active. Okay, there's this process that happens. B cells are just one of the type of cells that do this. There are other cells that do it as well. We'll talk about another one in a moment. But the B cell receptor binds to the antigen, and basically it's going to take it in and digest it and present its fragments, like its digested pieces, on its surface of its membrane. And that's really cool because then a helper T cell can come on over and take a look and examine and get kind of introduced to the antigen pieces that are now being displayed on the surface of the B cell. So that's what's happening here in step number 2. So this T cell becomes activated now, and then it begins to release chemicals that actually go back and begin to activate this B cell in a different way so that it begins to make clones of itself. So you see here the B cell factory has kind of been started. And so what happens now is that these B cells are cloning themselves over and over and over and over, and a big group of them are going to become what's called plasma cells. We've got some that are going to become what's called memory cells, okay? But the group over here, plasma cells, they begin to pump out what are called antibodies. And we've heard of those before. So basically, the B cells that have been activated begin to clone themselves into this amazing army that generates antibodies that are going to go and perform their function in the adaptive system. So this is just a closer look at this, taking a look at that. You can take a look on your own. Here, when we first have our introduction to an antigen, let's say I come into contact with somebody who has chickenpox, okay, then my body takes a good amount of time for these plasma cells to be generated, for the antibodies to begin being produced. So it takes a good little while, okay? But once those antibodies are in my body, now the next time I see this invader, I'm going to respond much more quickly. Okay, so my body's going to go into this great attack mode really fast the second time I'm introduced to that specific antigen. That's typically why we don't get things more than once. Okay, here's another visual of it. I like it because you can see the army of plasma cells down here producing the antibodies. You can see the memory cells that are also produced once these B cells have been activated. So lots of cool stuff in this humoral system. When it comes to antibodies, we can receive those naturally or we can be given those artificially. Naturally is if I get sick myself and my body creates them on my own. Passive is like a mom nursing a baby, that mom's antibodies are in the mother's milk and passed on to the baby. That's called naturally acquired immunity. When I go get a vaccine, you know, or if I can get given a form of the sickness that will cause my body to make its own antibodies, that's called active immunity still, but it's given to me artificially. Okay,